I'm not a superstitious man. I don't believe in ghosts, demons, or urban legends passed around on Reddit by teenagers with too much time and too little real fear in their lives. But what happened to me 2 weeks ago at that abandoned textile factory in Elk Ridge? I can't explain it, and I sure as hell can't forget it. It started with a sound. A low, rhythmic thump-thump-thump echoing through the trees on a windless night. I'd been camping out there alone, not out of necessity, but out of habit. I'm a nature photographer by trade, but solitude is my addiction. My tent was pitched in the woods, about half a mile from the remnants of the old Elk Ridge factory, a place the locals had told me to stay away from. They didn't say why, they never do in towns like this. Just vague warnings and slow, knowing glances. I've learned that the best places for my kind of work, raw, eerie, untouched landscapes, are usually the ones people are too afraid to explore. And the factory? It had that exact energy. A hulking concrete skeleton from the 1950s, swallowed by ivy and rust. A forgotten relic. But that night, the sound drew me in. It was steady and unnatural, like something pounding a floor with bare feet in rhythm. Not boots. Not machinery. Just flesh on concrete. I stood at the edge of the trees, camera in hand, and peered through the darkness. The moon wasn't bright enough to light much, but I could make out the towering ruins of the factory ahead. Windows shattered. Roof half collapsed. It should have been silent. But the sound was getting louder. I slipped through the tree line, careful with every step. My boots crunched over fallen branches and frost-covered grass. As I got closer, I could see flickering orange light coming from inside one of the open bays on the factory's ground floor. The fire? I crouched behind a crumbled wall, pulled out my long lens, and peered through it toward the light. And what I saw, it still doesn't feel real. There were people. At least a dozen of them, moving in a circle around a bonfire that shouldn't have been burning, not in a place soaked in oil and rot. They were barefoot, wearing nothing but thin, ragged linen clothes. Some had fabric wrapped around their heads like makeshift hoods. And they were moving in unison, slow and deliberate, with arms raised and feet stomping in time with that awful, pulsing rhythm. Their faces were blank. Like puppets with their strings pulled by something unseen. I started filming. My hands were shaking, but years of practice kept the lens steady. I zoomed in, trying to make out details, symbols on their robes, the way their eyes never blinked, how none of them made a sound except for the synchronized stomp of their feet. Then one of them stopped. A tall man near the center of the circle. He turned his head, slowly, directly toward me. Like he knew. I dropped behind the wall. My heart was hammering. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe he just looked in my direction randomly. Maybe it was an illusion. But then I heard it. The sound of feet. Not in rhythm. Running. Coming closer. I bolted. I didn't even look back. I sprinted through the trees like a man possessed, branches whipping my face, roots grabbing my ankles. My lungs were on fire, and behind me, just faintly, I could hear voices. Chanting. Whispering. My name. They were whispering my name. I didn't stop until I reached my car parked down the hill, breathless and soaked in sweat. I slammed the door, locked it, and just sat there, staring at the tree line. Nothing followed me. No one appeared. But the whispers? I swear I still heard them. Inside my head. I drove straight to the nearest motel, locked the door, and didn't sleep a second that night. But the next morning? I did something stupid. I watched the footage. And what I saw wasn't just a group of people dancing. No, it was something darker. Slower. Inhuman. When I paused the video, frame by frame, their faces weren't blank anymore. They were screaming. All of them. Mouths open in silent agony. Eyes rolled back. Their bodies moved like they weren't in control, like they were being used. I knew I should have deleted it. I should have burned the SD card and forgotten everything. But instead, I went back. I ran. No thought. No plan. No idea where I was going. My legs just moved, blindly, desperately, away from the tunnel, away from the firelight, away from them. I could hear them behind me, bare feet slapping concrete in perfect rhythm, not rushed, not frantic. Like they didn't need to run. Like they already knew where I'd end up. I hit the stairs and scrambled upward, nearly slipping on the debris. My flashlight was still off, but the faint red exit sign glowing across the factory gave me a target. I had to make it. I didn't look back. Couldn't. The second I turned, I knew something worse would happen. I burst into the main floor of the factory, lungs burning, heart thundering. The building suddenly felt unfamiliar. The layout was wrong. This wasn't the same entrance I'd come through. The graffiti on the walls had changed. The massive eye was gone, replaced with a mouth. Open. Grinning. Teeth like knives, painted in wet red. I stumbled forward, trying door after door. Every one sealed. Welded shut. Even the holes in the walls were different now, too narrow to squeeze through. Like the place itself was shifting. Rearranging. I stopped to catch my breath behind an overturned cabinet, heart hammering. I pulled out my phone, praying it would have signal. It didn't. But that wasn't the worst part. The video I'd recorded, the one from the tunnel, was gone. Not corrupted. Not glitched. Deleted. Like it had never existed. Suddenly, I heard a voice. Not from behind. Not from ahead. From my phone. Just one word, whispered in that same guttural chant I'd heard around the fire. Stay. The screen went black. I dropped the phone. It hit the ground face first and cracked. I didn't care. I just needed to get out. I picked a direction and ran. Through rusted corridors, over broken beams, around puddles of oil that reflected faces that weren't mine. The more I ran, the worse it got. Doors that should have led outside opened into more corridors. Stairs led down when they should have gone up. The factory was alive, reshaping itself, boxing me in like prey in a maze. And then I saw her. At first, I thought she was a person. Standing at the far end of a hallway. Still, silent. Wearing what looked like a torn white hospital gown. Her head was tilted unnaturally to the side, hair covering her face. She didn't move. Didn't speak. But the second I blinked, she was closer. Just a few steps, but enough to make my breath catch. I blinked again. Closer still. I turned and ran. Tore around a corner, sprinted through a room full of shattered glass, vaulted over a rusted conveyor belt. But every time I blinked, it was closer. It didn't matter how fast I moved. She was tied to my sight. A living glitch. A haunting tethered to my perception. Finally, I found a stairwell that didn't seem to lead further into the maze. I dove into it, pulling the door shut behind me. The air was thick with dust. Silent. I didn't blink. I couldn't. My eyes burned, watering, twitching. But I kept them open, wide and raw, every instinct screaming not to let go. I sat on the stairs and stared forward for what felt like hours. Then finally, inevitably, I blinked. Nothing happened. I waited. Breathing shallow, every muscle clenched. Then a soft rustle from above. Slow. Deliberate. A single bare footstep on the metal stairs. And another. Getting closer. I leapt to my feet and bolted downward, taking the steps 3 at a time. I didn't care where they led anymore, only that they went away from her. At the bottom was another door. I flung it open and stepped into actual light. I blinked against the sudden glow. Fluorescence. A hallway that looked new. Polished. Like the inside of a hospital wing that shouldn't have existed in a place like this. There were chairs. Posters. A faint intercom buzz. Was I dreaming? The walls were painted pale green. Framed photos hung evenly spaced along both sides, black and white portraits of people smiling stiffly. All with the same eyes. Unblinking. Too wide. One of the photos wasn't a photo. It was a mirror. And in that mirror, I wasn't alone. Behind me, standing just outside the frame, was the woman. I spun. Nothing there. I turned back to the mirror. She was closer now. This time, I didn't run. I stared. And finally, she moved. Not toward me. Not directly. She lifted one hand and pointed. Not at me. At the ceiling. I followed the direction. The mounted in the corner was a camera. Still humming. Pointed straight at the hallway. I looked back at the mirror. She was gone. But a second later, the hallway lights flickered. And behind me, Music. That same off-key melody from the ritual. Not again. I turned and ran, but the hallway behind me had changed. Narrower. Darker. The walls wet. Breathing. I ran until the music faded, until the lights vanished, until the hallway spilled me into what looked like a theater. A massive, underground auditorium, carved into the belly of the factory. Hundreds of seats. Every one of them occupied. Not by people, but by mannequins. Slumped. Broken. Watching the stage. And on that stage, under a single spotlight, was me. Not literally. A figure dressed in my clothes, with my face crudely painted on a porcelain mask, stood center stage. Arms spread. Mouth open in a scream. Above him a banner. Welcome to the performance. The mannequins clapped. In perfect sync. Plastic hands slapping together. No sound. But I heard the rhythm. The beat. It matched the dance. The same one they'd done around the fire. I backed away. But one mannequin, just one, turned its head toward me. And smiled. That's when I realized I was never meant to leave. I don't remember how long I stood there. Watching myself, or whatever wore my face, on that stage, frozen in an endless scream, arms spread like a grotesque puppet. The mannequins never blinked. They didn't have to. Their eyes were painted on. But they were watching. I could feel it. Then the lights cut. Pitch black. Total silence. I didn't breathe. Didn't move. For a moment, it was like the entire world held its breath with me. Then I heard it. Footsteps. But not coming toward me. They were pacing across the stage. Deliberate. Slow. Something was behind the curtain. I stepped backward, quiet, careful, searching for the exit. But the door I'd come through was gone. Just gone. Like it had never been there. Then came a sound that nearly made me vomit. Fabric tearing. Flesh squelching. The thing on the stage, the figure in my clothes, was splitting open. Peeling itself apart. Mask cracking. Arms snapping at wrong angles as something inside clawed its way out. And the mannequins? They clapped. Louder. Faster. Until it was thunder. I turned and ran blindly, crashing through the seats, over plastic limbs, through rows of smiling, frozen faces. No doors. No ladders. No stairs. But up ahead, at the back wall, there was an opening. Rough, carved, like someone had dug it out with their bare hands. Beyond it, a tunnel. Not like the first one. This one breathed. The walls pulsed like lungs. Dripping. But it was the only way out. I ducked inside, hands brushing against wet, warm stone as I crawled through the dark. No lights. No direction. Only forward. Behind me I could still hear clapping. Even deeper now. Slower. As if it were coming from inside the walls. At one point I swear I heard my own voice whispering, "Welcome back." Eventually, I dropped out into another room. Concrete walls. A chair in the middle. A single light bulb swinging above it. No windows. No doors. I turned back. The tunnel I'd crawled through? Gone. Just another wall. I was sealed in. Panic rose, choking and hot, but something in the room caught my eye. Photos. Piles of them. Hundreds. Scattered across the floor. All of me. Different angles. Different moments. Some of them from childhood. Others from this exact night. One showed me standing outside the factory. Another, me inside the tunnel. Another, sitting in the stairwell, eyes wide, trying not to blink. Someone, or something, had been watching me forever. Then I found the final photo. It was still warm. Fresh. It showed me in this room. Holding the photo. A timestamp burned into the corner. Right now. That's when the light went out. And the voice came again. Now you understand. The walls began to peel. Not crack. Not crumble. Feel like skin. Beneath the concrete was flesh. Veins. Muscle. The entire room was alive. And it was awakening. I screamed. Pounded at the walls. No effect. Then the floor gave out. I dropped. Further. Further. Until I landed in a place I don't know how to describe. A chamber deep beneath the factory. The walls here pulsed with light. Thousands of glowing symbols floated in the air, like language made of blood and fire. And at the center, a machine, ancient, metallic, covered in wires, tubes, and screens. But instead of monitors, it had faces, twitching, blinking, like trapped souls flickering across glass. It turned toward me. No gears, no motors, just motion, impossible, silent, smooth. And it spoke. You were never a guest. You were a replacement. I backed away. But the floor beneath my feet pulled me forward. Chains of light lashed out, wrapping around my wrists, ankles, throat. The machine opened. A hollow compartment, shaped like a man. Shaped like me. One must stay, so others can watch. I screamed as the light dragged me in. Into the shell. The metal wrapped around me like cold skin. And then, darkness. Not sleep. Not death. Just awareness, suspended in nothing. I don't know how long I stayed there. But eventually, I woke up. Sort of. Standing on the stage. In my old clothes. Arms raised. Mouth open. Mannequins clapping. And this time, you were in the audience. I saw you. Just for a second. You were watching. Curious. Nervous. Just like I had been. So if you've come here, if you've stepped through that broken fence and heard the drums echoing through the dark, if you've seen the fire through the trees, turn around. Before you join the performance. Because once the spotlight finds you, you never leave the stage.